Are Harry and Meghan going to look back at the summer of 2023 as the most horrible summer of their lives? Basically, everything is bad news, from the Spotify deal falling through, Netflix deal looking tenuous, their Emmy snub, Harry losing now part of his court case, and of course, it all started off with the snubbing at the coronation once again, and their disastrous fake paparazzi chase through the streets of Manhattan. The couple has basically cycled through almost every negative news story you could find, including that their marriage is on the rocks. And I don't think the seas are going to get any calmer for them going forward. In fact, I think they're going to get even more rough because there's a lot of still bad news on the horizon for them. And it seems like their grand plan, whatever it was for Megxit, has really fallen apart. So we're going to go over some of the details of Harry's recent court case loss and how the strikes in Hollywood, I think, are probably going to completely derail what's left of their Netflix deal. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network, my name is Brittany and I provide compelling royal commentary. So if you guys want to subscribe, I would love to have you back. We have some great videos coming soon, including introductions to the various royal families. I just finished my one of Norway, so I'll schedule that one maybe for this weekend or some other time. It turned out really well. I'm super excited about it. I also have a fashion channel where I do unboxings and look at royal fashion. So if you're interested in that, feel free to click the link down below. And I also have a weekly newsletter. So if you guys want to subscribe to that through Substack, there is that link as well. And before we go into the collapse of brand Sussex, I've got to bring this up because I find this utterly hysterical. Harry and Meghan came out in support of this new report that talked about basically the global progress of dads. We need to make sure dads see themselves doing a variety of different tasks, not just the ones that they're stereotypically given, you know, like yard work and working on cars and those sorts of things. No. There needs to be more commercials of men in the kitchen. So guys, listen to this little bit of this report Harry and Meghan just touted on their Archwell website. More specifically, the media should break down gender stereotypes and show men doing cooking and cleaning and women doing tasks like mowing the lawn or fixing the sink. Well, maybe it's me, but personally, I hate anything to do with the lawn. Hate it. If I had to choose between the kitchen and the lawn, I would pick the kitchen. And if I had a husband, I'd make him do the lawn because I hate doing the lawn. And I think many women would feel the same. And a lot of men would go, I'd much rather be in the lawn than trying to work on the kitchen. And yes, there are situations where that might be different for various couples, but I don't think anybody is sitting there in 2023 and thinking, you know what? I'm a man and there's no reason for me to be in the kitchen ever. There's very few people like that anymore. I think everybody is generally more interested in sharing household duties between spouses, and somehow this backward notion that Harry and Meghan had that somehow we're all still stuck in the 1950s and 60s, I think is a little ridiculous and rather insulting, because honestly, again, if I enjoyed doing the lawn and my husband enjoyed cleaning and cooking in the kitchen, hey, who cares? As long as the chores get done, that's all that matters. But of course, Harry and Meghan, oh no, that's too scary. We need to have commercials. She's still pushing her little ridiculous letter that she believes changed a multi-million-dollar ad campaign from the 90s. She's still pushing that. And I find this entirely ironic for Harry and Meghan because think about it. Does anybody ever think that Meghan mows her own gosh darn lawn in Montecito? Of course she doesn't. Meghan Markle, I don't think even knows probably how to work a lawnmower. Prince Harry, maybe he does. He told us in the cut interview, or Meghan did, that he was working on the pipes in their home. So he's working on the pipes. Meghan Markle enjoys cooking. So ironically, the report they're promoting that says that we need to break down those gender stereotypes are essentially following those gender stereotypes. Again, the irony of the two of them is just outstanding. I mean, just even the report itself, let's talk about fathers from the two people who don't speak to their fathers. Like, just on the face of it, that report should be thrown out for having any association with Harry and Meghan. If you're not speaking with your dad and you have a report on fatherhood, why would you ask two people who have no connection or communication right now with their fathers to promote it? That's just silly. And I think that goes to show again how out of touch and out of sync and how just delusional Harry and Meghan are right now in their bubble, and how they're trying to do anything to better promote themselves, and they're epically failing basically at every step. Like I said, the fake paparazzi chase in New York City. We have Meghan Markle being dropped from Spotify because she was the only one working on Spotify. And what I find most ironic right now as well is that Meghan Markle signed with William Morris Endeavor in April. It's been crickets since then. It's been crickets. When Spotify dropped her, the smart thing for William Morris Endeavor to do is to say, hey, yeah, Spotify dropped her, but look at over here at Amazon Music, or look over here at Audible. We have her signed up elsewhere. They don't have it because they literally don't have it. Nobody is signing up to support the Meghan Markle bandwagon. I think especially now this summer with the collapse of Bud Light, brands are exceptionally aware of people who are considered potentially divisive figures. So even though in the beginning, I think some brands might have gone, oh yeah, we'll go into Meghan Markle, they're probably looking at her favorabilities now going, yeah, no, there's just nobody that seems to like you. And we've seen all this happen with Bud Light over here, and you're not the same vein. Meghan's not promoting the same things, but they're looking at her going, you're a figure that people either love or they despise. And we're not really going to engage in that because we want to engage with something that's maybe less controversial than Meghan Markle. It's all culminated in a season that's been unbelievably disastrous for them. And so let's first talk about Harry's court case loss. Yes, Harry lost his court case. So if they have this grand vision is that they're going to sue everybody into oblivion in order to make money, I don't think that's going to work out very well. Meghan won her lawsuit basically on a technicality. Everybody agreed that she really shouldn't have won that lawsuit. They were even thinking about changing the laws because she took advantage of a law that they have on the books, but they didn't mean to be abused in that way. And everybody's like, yeah, they weren't that pleased with it. But Harry decided to sue basically every newspaper for the supposed phone hacking scandal, which did happen in certain instances, but many agreed didn't really happen with Harry. And he's lost a huge chunk of that. So he's lost all the phone hacking aspects of his case. Despite a Hail Mary at the end, he amended his statement basically to say that the palace had a secret agreement with all these newspapers and he wasn't made aware of it because he's a dummy and nobody told him anything. And so his case should be allowed to go forward. So the judge basically threw that out. And here's a couple of quotes that we got from both the Telegraph and the Times of London. These are both very reputable newspapers, and they were reporting on the situation, which looks incredibly bad for Harry. Aspects of the case can still go forward, like if it came to a private eye investigating something and some other potentially underhanded dealings, that part of the case can go forwards, but it's not a very strong case, which I thought from the beginning. The only people who are winning here, Harry, in case you're ever listening, the only people winning are your lawyers. And the opposition's lawyers too. Those are the only people winning here. So here's some of what we got. It says the High Court judge said the Duke's claims of blagging or obtaining confidential details by deception or impersonation and using other unlawful invasions of privacy could proceed to trial, which is due in January. The remaining claims that must be tried, he told the court. I do not find this is a case where it's possible to say one party is clearly the successful party. So what that means, I think, is that the judge is like, well, this can go forwards, but really nobody has a strong case of winning here. And I think the time passage is an epic failure here. And I think a lot of, if you are doing underhanded dealing things, you're generally not going to have a strong paper trail. So there may not be evidence there. I mean, Harry was basically their sole witness for this whole case. And even he couldn't remember things correctly. So I don't think this is going to proceed very well, but the judge is like, we should allow this part to continue. But, and this is more the burden on Harry's side, because remember, Harry is suing the newspaper. The newspaper was just existing on its line, and Harry's the one that went, oh, let's do this. And so Harry is the one with the burden here in a lot of ways. And so the judge is telling him very subtly, you may want to drop this because you may not come out the winner. But again, Harry's not that bright. Next little bit goes on to say, Mr. Justice Fancourt also refused the Duke's permission to amend his claim after he alleged that the palace's deal supposedly struck with the late Queen's approval with NGN, so this is news group newspapers, I know this is a little redundant, executives, has stopped him from bringing the hacking claim until September in 2019. He described the Duke's case in relation to the secret agreement as implausible and inherently unlikely, noting that the only evidence supporting its existence was the Duke's own witness statement, which he described as vague and limited. The Duke wrote in an earlier witness statement that the agreement was to avoid a situation where a member of the royal family would have to sit in the witness box. NGN, which denies any unlawful activity took place at the Sun, has vehemently denied that such an agreement exists. So in this case, Harry really doesn't win here. It's just kind of a cluster bit of chaos, and he couldn't prove his case. And the judge also noticed that you're not a reliable witness. If you're not a reliable witness and the case solely relies on you being the witness, that's gonna end badly. And Harry, I think, even said, or his team said something to the effect, well, if we could bring Piers Morgan here. And I'm like, but you're suing the Sun. Piers hasn't been editor there in 10 plus years. Why would he go to the stand and testify on your behalf? And why would you be dragging him? It just doesn't make any sense. But of course, in Harry's delusional mind, he's fixing the world via the media because the media was mean to him and his wife. That's what this all is about. So the next little bit, we have a statement from the news group newspapers just basically claiming victory. And notably, no statement yet from Harry's team. The High Court has today, in a significant victory for the news group newspapers, dismissed the Duke of Sussex's phone hacking claims against both the News of the World and the Sun. As we reach the tail end of litigation, NGN is drawing a line under disputed matters, some of which date back more than 20 years. In arguing his case, the Duke of Sussex had alleged a secret agreement existed between him, Buckingham Palace, and NGN, which stopped NGN from asserting that the Duke's claims had been brought too late. The judge, Mr. Justice Fancourt, found his claims in relation to the alleged secret agreement were not plausible or credible. It's quite clear that there was never any such agreement, and it is only the Duke who has ever asserted there was. Mr. Fancourt then dismissed the Duke's phone hacking claims against both the News of the World and the Sun on the grounds that the claim had been brought too late, which was already evident. This substantially reduces the scope of his legal claim. The exact nature and scope of any trial of the remainder will be the subject of further hearings. So too bad, so sad, Harry. They're not dropping this because you brought it up, so guess what? You get to see it through to the finish line, and you may end up paying their legal fees. And so if you guys had an idea, you and Meghan, of raising money by suing, that may not happen. That may have been a really, really bad idea. But I think anybody could have told you that. All right, so here's a couple of bits we have from the Times. It says, the judge added, it is not, in my view, realistically possible that the Duke confused assurances about which he learned in 2018 with a secret agreement on which he positively relied in 2012 by not bringing a claim, nor does he say that he did confuse them. There is simply no explanation. The judge said Harry's allegation his brother received a secret payment does not support an agreement in 2012. Again, they're addressing this so-called agreement, but this agreement could be just a legal conclusion of the case. And we know generally that the person who was hacked more than Harry was William. William and Kate were hacked a lot. That's how we knew William's nickname for Kate was Babykins, is that they hacked her voicemail. So William and Catherine, who are the future now king and queen, were a much bigger target than Harry ever was. Yes, they wanted information on Harry, but William was just the greater target. And that was almost, again, another blow to Harry's ego, that despite everything, even though they did hack his stuff a couple of times, they're like, well, you weren't really all that important. We were more interested in your brother. That's why we settled with him. And Harry could have settled, but either maybe there wasn't enough there. And I think they didn't tell Harry in some ways because he was just a bit unstable and a bit unpredictable. And they just didn't really want to engage him in a complex situation where they thought he wouldn't react well. The judge goes on to say the fact that William did not bring a claim in 2012 does not indicate the existence of a secret agreement. It is clear that the palace was very reluctant for senior members of the royal family to issue proceedings and attract publicity. It demonstrates that NGN was willing to settle with Prince William rather than become embroiled in litigation as it has with the Duke. And once again, this is bad news for Harry. And the palace was right. Do you want a royal on the stand? No, not really. Harry opened himself up to being confused, being berated, and his definition of the truth being very much challenged, and his version of the truth being challenged on the international stage. And that's not good for Harry. I don't think a guy in great mental state to have that kind of barrage of questions, and he did get tangled up. He kept his cool pretty well, but he did get tangled up in the truth versus fiction, and that just doesn't bode well for his future. And obviously he can continue this case, but he may end up paying the news group newspapers, and he may not get a cent from anyone, and he may be the one out of pocket for hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not maybe even close to $1 million when it's all said and done. And I think this proves that sometimes litigation is not the best answer, but it's become one that Harry and Meghan have used frequently to try and get their way. And it seems like that's finally starting to run out. Yes, another aspect of Harry's case can move forward, but now it's much smaller. The scope is much, much smaller. And even if, let's say, he wins, his payout could be pennies, and he's still on the line for maybe all of his legal fees, and the other team just pays for all their legal fees. And what's nice for the newspapers sometimes is that they get more stories out of these legal proceedings, which Harry and Meghan apparently do not seem to understand, because the Daily Mail had a field day with Meghan Markle's trial. They just kept exploring things again and again and again, dragging up things. And she had this little victory video she did for her reality TV show, basically, where they filmed her at the middle of the night, where she's like, oh yay, I won, but honey, you lost. You were basically revealed to be a liar. You said, and the court gave you the benefit of the doubt, that you misplaced or forgot that you still had access to these certain emails and text messages when your assistant or your communications secretary did not. You could say maybe she forgot, although I really think it was a lie. And she knew they existed. She just didn't want to admit that they existed. And so I think this is bad news for Harry and Meghan, and Harry really should just drop these cases and move on. Again, part of his vendetta and reason he's doing this is because he wants to fix the newspapers. And I just don't think it's going to happen, A. And he looks more and more like a fool every time. So it's best for him to just drop this and move on. But the question is, what else does Harry have? And by extension, what else does Meghan have? Harry has nothing else going on. I think he does have one public speaking engagement coming up soon. He has the Invictus Games in September. His documentary on the Invictus Games will probably drop in August. But will anybody care? Maybe not. And I think Meghan Markle's in a huge pickle right now, because they have these creative deals with Netflix. And with the writer's strike and the actor's strike, Hollywood is shut down. And that's a massive problem for them. So Harry and Meghan, they're not the creative talents they believe they are, especially Meghan. She was not particularly good on Suits. She was not somebody who sought out the creative side of the entertainment process at all. She, I think, wanted the glamour of it and the shallowness of being an actor, but I don't think she really cared about the craft. So when it comes to creating these features for Netflix, I think they were having to farm out a lot because they want to do scripted content. They want to move away from documentaries and towards scripted content. Sure, Netflix is like, we really paid you to create Keeping Up with the Sussexes. You decided to do your more artsy documentary thing, which people again called you out for being a liar for because you used stock footage when you shouldn't have. And that became a bit of an issue, but it wasn't a major hit, but it was always going to be one. Their second feature, Live to Lead, bombed. The Invictus Games ones could definitely bomb. So Meghan Markle, in her mind, she's going to create rom-coms because she loves rom-coms. But the problem is, with the entertainment industry shut down, she can't write if she was attempting to write. I mean, she could on her own time if she wanted to. But I imagine every process of their scripted series were being farmed out to, especially the creative. Everything was being farmed out. Harry and Meghan just, I'm sure, made broad decisions like they do for Archewell. Archewell, we heard they only work on that 4 hours out of the year. 4 hours out of the year, they work on their charity. So basically, they just make a couple of decisions and everybody else runs everything in between. Just like with their charity, Harry and Meghan don't have much to do on the Netflix side. So the strikes mean that they can't do anything, and Netflix can't do anything. Hollywood may not be able to produce things you could say in some instances for a year from now, because you have all these projects that are now being paused, waited, nobody can do anything, they can't promote anything. So some projects may be pulled from the theaters and the theater slates just because the actors can't promote them. And some people are cheering for this and hoping that some of the bad writing that we've had in the industry gets removed, and that could be the case. But you also had this instance where even just the extended members of the Hollywood community, so the camera people, the lighting people, the grips, the caterers, all of these industries are also shutting down. For Harry and Meghan being in Montecito, well, that helps them because then they don't have to drive to LA to attempt to get something off the ground. But I also think that means that they have nothing they're working on right now. There's nothing they can get off the ground. And there's nothing they may not be able to get off the ground for a year or two. And by that point, their Netflix deal may be up. And if Netflix is like, we don't like this idea, we don't really see this idea going anywhere, they could just go, you know what, we're fine. And that would be a huge disaster for especially Meghan. Meghan's come through with all these Hollywood deals. Creating this Hollywood world is her ideal. But without the industry behind them, there's just really nothing they can do. You almost feel the karma coming. I'm not a believer in karma at all, but it's been fascinating to see that they initiated Megxit in January 2020, not realizing the whole world would shut down. So whatever they initially had planned for Hollywood got immediately derailed because everything shut down because of the pandemic. And now, 2 years later, they still haven't been able to do anything within that 2 window where people were starting to get back to work. And they didn't do anything since then. And now everything in the industry itself is still falling apart with the strikes. You just feel this, there's some type of divine something going on. And it's somewhat nice to see because you want to see people get their comeuppance at some point. And I really think Harry and Meghan are. They made this gigantic leap to Hollywood, trashing the royal family as they were left out the door. And as it turns out, they probably need them now more than ever. Harry and Meghan don't have much of a future left in Hollywood, to be honest. And with the strikes going on, Netflix may just let their contract run out, give them whatever they had remaining, and just wipe their hands and be done with them. And then what are they gonna do? Nothing has come from the William Morris and Endeavor agreement. So I think the only thing she's left with, and the only way they can move forward, is the TIG. The TIG, guys, it will be coming back. And somebody mentioned, I think maybe on Twitter, that it may come back for her birthday in August. I can totally see that, something very similar, because at this point, that's all they've got is a shallow goop knockoff. So I think that's the direction Meghan Markle is going to go. But it's been unbelievable to see this really, really terrible summer for them. It's been an epic disaster, an epic train wreck. And they can maybe get things back on track, but I think that'll require some humility from them and some engagement with the average folk, which Harry and Meghan, I think, really, really struggle with. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of Harry and Meghan's horrifically bad summer. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.